Hey guys, today we're going to have a look at an AI agent that saves restaurant owners time by taking reservations straight from their website in this chat over here. It's built on Voiceflow, which is a tool that allows you to build conversational flows. This is how the final agent looks like. I will walk you through all of these steps one by one, including the prompts that are needed. And it is powered in the backend by Airtable, which is a tool that's similar to Google Sheets, but a bit more sophisticated. And finally, once the AI agent is built, you can copy the complete Voiceflow code into your website's costume code section so it appears right here behind the button on your website. I'm including all the links to all the tools in the description below. I'm doing a 30 AI agents in 30 days challenge. This is number 10, and I'm sharing the complete Voiceflow file with you that you can download there as well and import directly into your Voiceflow. Now, let's just chat with this agent and try to book a table. Hey, I'd like to book a table. It asks me about the guests, 3 guests. What date? I'd like it for tomorrow, 27th of August. And now it reads it back to me. It confirms everything. What day, what time do you want? And I say, let's do 1915. It rereads the data back to me and asks me if I want to confirm. Do I want it to proceed to checking the availability? I say yes. It asks me if I want it to hold a table for me. So I ask, what tables do you have? And what are the differences? So I'm curious to hear if they're in different areas of the restaurant, or what size they are, and so on. So now it shows me all of these tables, and these tables, they are based on this database that I showed you earlier. It has everything stored in here, including notes, so that the AI agent has information about everything. Now it shows me all of these tables, and I say, okay, one of them is also suited for families. So it's table 2. So I say, okay, then it showed me all the tables that it had available for families. And I say, okay, I'd like the one with the window view. It confirmed, and now it asks for my details. And it asks for my name and phone number now because it would have been weird for it to ask them at the beginning. So I'll give them all these details. So now it proceeds, and now it reads them back to me again, which is super important because LLMs often hallucinate. So I want them to always read it back to me. And this is something that we prompted it. You will see it in a bit. And I say, okay, it's correct. So it asked me this, and now it will go on and book it into Airtable. And it says, okay, we'll be looking forward to seeing you. And I say, okay, thanks. Now let's have a look at what happened inside Airtable. So we go to the reservations table, and we can see that actually a booking has been made here, right? So this is the booking. It was made for the hour I set, 7:15, confirmed, my name, my phone number, then my email address. It was from the source Chatbot, and then also a short explanation here that there's a high chair that I need for the baby. At the same time, if I look at my email inbox, I received a confirmation as well. And the confirmation contains the restaurant name, the reservation number, and it also has a short summary for the things that I wanted. So I wanted a high chair requested for the baby. Here's the date. So all looking good. If you're curious how I built this, now we're gonna jump straight into it step by step, covering each step. And if it sparked your curiosity, don't forget to subscribe to this channel to not miss any of the 30 AI agents in 30 days. Let's get started. Let's start right at the beginning where we ideate how a conversation flow might look like. Here I will use Miro, which is a tool where I can draw really simple diagrams. So I will use this just to showcase how does a restaurant ordering flow look like in general, okay? So the first step would be something like greeting. So that means the front desk greets the guest and asks what they want. And usually it would be something like, yes, I want to book a table, okay? So we call this step 1. And then the second step would be gather the details about that booking. So usually they ask how many people arrive, what's your name, how can I contact you, and check availability. When do you want to come and sit with us? So I'll call this step 2, information gathering. Now, these are things such as name, phone number, number of guests, and so on. And adding to that is date and time of booking or of the reservation. Then the next step is to check availability. So in this case, the receptionist will have a look into the database and see if a table for that time and day and the size of the party is available. So then I will put a note here saying check if date and time is table available for date and time for that party size. This will be done by checking the internal database of the restaurant, right? Check internal database. And then lastly, we have number 4, create booking. So it will take the details from the guest and it will book that table for that particular date and time against the database. Then the guest will also receive an email confirmation for the date and time and containing also any special notes that the guest might have set, such as, for example, if they want a high standing chair for their kid. We will specify these details here again. Once that's all done, they hang up and basically greet and say goodbye. Say goodbye and hang up. This is, instead of hang up, close the chat. Of course, this can also be implemented over the phone. I have a video with this, but in this case, we will use a chatbot that is embedded on the website of the restaurant so that guests can book their table in writing. This is suitable, for example, if they're in environments where they cannot speak, such as a quiet office, for example. All right, so here is the high-level conversation flow that we have. It starts with a greeting. The receptionist says, "Hey, how can I help you?" Then the guest will say something like, "I want to book a table." They gather the information such as name, phone number, guests, and the type of reservation they want. Then they will check the availability on their backend. Here we will use a database in the backend. We will see it in a second where all the data is stored. Then it will create the booking inside the database based on the exact date and time and other notes that the guest said or wrote in the chat. And then finally, it will say goodbye and close the chat. And the guest will end up with an email in their inbox with all the details. This is just a rough outline, but as always, I like to start with ChatGPT just to see if there are any errors that I have in my thinking, if there are any things that I didn't see. And ChatGPT also helps me to come up with a draft, let's say, instruction for creating this type of conversation. Now I start prompting ChatGPT and say, designing an AI voice agent for restaurant reservation inquiries and bookings, right? And now I will prompt it via the role task format framework where I start with your role. So I started with specifying that they're a conversational designer for AI voice agents, and that's also knowledgeable of backend systems, such as backend infrastructure that's used in implementing the AI agent infrastructure, right? This is something like databases, tables, etc. Okay. Then we continue with that task. That task is, it will help me design an AI voice agent implemented with the tool Voiceflow, which uses a database to serve as the restaurant's availability stored in Airtable. I will say infrastructure. So basically here, I specify this as a subheading, as you can see from your task. So basically this starts with 3 dashes. And here I explain what I'm thinking that it should use. I'll say the agent will have access to the Airtable API in order to check restaurant table availability and book reservations for particular dates. We will see how we can connect these two, Airtable and the AI agent, in a bit. But here I'm telling it that it should design the agent in such a way that it should be able to use tools. Tools are something that is super important in AI agent design, and it lets it basically use different systems on our behalf. I'm telling it what they should help me with. Like, what should ChatGPT help me with now? I want to brainstorm a simple database schema for up to 20 restaurant tables of different sizes. Okay, a database schema is nothing else than what tables should I use in order to model this use case. And then I will say, help me implement the database table inside the Airtable base. So a base in Airtable is like a collection of various tables, and we want it to help us choose these tabs in a proper way. We say in this scenario, we'll build a restaurant voice agent that responds to inbound calls, which basically is inbound messages, a conversation script for the AI agent that guides the caller through the booking process, and then come up with 2 possible demo scenarios with actual text that can be used to demo this agent to a restaurant owner's prospect. Then I say, make sure you're correct and double check any of the prompts. Perfect. Then any prompts you'll output will be in Markdown format. Give me the actual tool calls to the API for the Airtable in the required places so that I can build them inside the agent myself. And then finally, I specify an operation mode. Here I say, if you're unsure of something, always stop and ask me, and I'll provide you context. You'll ask me about anything that I've forgotten to include or specify. Again, double checking our logical assumptions. and then make sure you double check your answers for plausibility, technical correctness, and user friendliness. All right, let's go. Let's see what it does. So you see here it's activated basically the AI agent mode inside GPT-5, thinking longer for their answers. And if we open up the logic of this AI agent, it's super smart. Like you can see, okay, it's looking how to handle time range conflicts, right? I'm thinking through the process of building this design or designing this AI agent and so on. Very interesting. So you can see it's super smart. Like GPT-5 has this inbuilt functionality that it realizes that this is a complex query. So it activates its higher order thinking, like this agentic thinking. All right, here it is. So let's see what it built. It built an Airtable schema with the table. So it uses, 20 physical tables, table ID, name, capacity, zone, active, size, bucket, notes, and then a second table for the reservations. So everything, all the bookings are here. Reservation number, table, party size, start, duration. Now this is the important part, finding conflicting reservations in the time window, right? So how does it know when the time range specified by me conflicts with the tables that are already booked? And it's basically doing this filtering here. So when I query Airtable, I can use a filter, okay? And here is the part that it's basically doing. And now here comes the conversation flow. And we wanted to double check if our assumption is correct. So here it shows, high level greeting and intent, perfect, party size, date, team, time flexibility. So we had all this in the information gathering, right? Then find the candidates by capacity and check conflicts. So this is basically the availability check, everything that happens here. Offer options and place hold. This happens here in this step. And then the guest details, which come at the end, which is something that we didn't think through because we won't ask the guest right in the beginning for their phone number, right? It's a bit weird. If you call a restaurant and then they say right away, hey, what's your phone number? It's a bit weird. So we will have to take this away from here and have a separate step, which is called, we put it over here, which let's call it 3.5. It's gather remaining information, such as phone number, okay? And then this will first go through here, and then from here it will then go through here. And once that's done, it creates a booking, okay? So this is a logical flow that we had, and we see ChatGPT helped us uncover it. Then we had the last step, read back and close, which is this one, say goodbye and close the chat, which is perfect, and abandon no availability. And then basically if they say no, we cancel it. And this is again important, system prompt for the AI voice agent. So we will copy this into Voiceflow, and it will show us inside brackets when the API call is. For example, exact time to guests' immediate availability. This is when the caller knows right when they want to make the booking for 2 guests. And it say, okay, I want to make a reservation, how many guests, 2, and so on. And it shows us how to get the information. So it is basically what we saw here, information gathering. We will use the API. Now we will go back to the Airtable database because this is the first step that we need before starting to build the actual AI agent. So what is Airtable? Let me show you a quick walkthrough. It is nothing else than Google Sheets, but a bit smarter. So this is its interface. And we start by clicking create and build app on your own. And then it opens up this view that I told you before. So this is a base, okay? And it also has an AI agent here, which we will pull out in a second. But first, let's have a walkthrough. So this is a base that we will give a name that we can recognize. So I gave it a rather lengthy name with a code because this is agent number 10. And this is how it looks like. So here we have a table that looks just like we are used to from Google Sheets. And then here we can add different tables and then we can rename them. And we can do all sorts of stuff here. It has some sample template that is standard for everyone. So for example, here I can add my name, some notes, and some other drop downs and all of this. And each column has a separate type. So I can choose the type by clicking edit field. And it has all of these types, so like single text, long text, attachment, checkbox, use a date. For example, if I click date, and I can then click here and choose a date. So nothing new. Everything very simple, just like with Google Sheets. And what we were to do now is to basically go to this table here or create a new table. And we would say start from scratch. We will call this, for example, tables, because these are the restaurant tables. And we would copy paste all of this. So for example, name, capacity, zone. So we would call this, okay, name is already there, capacity, You see, this is very cumbersome. Luckily, Airtable already has an AI agent over here, which is very nice. It is a new addition and it saves you so much time. What it can do, it can take a prompt and it can do all of these operations manual, like automatically. So I don't have to do them manually. So in this sense, what I do is I go back here and I just copy. I click this little link here, this button, copy. So it copies all of this information here into Markdown format. So I can come here and say, create the following tables for a restaurant booking system. And then I paste this table so that it understands what the columns of the first table are. And I say, okay, this is table name tables. Again, backtick means formatted as code. So it understands it's an actual name. And then I say table, what's the name of the other one? Table reservations. Again, I copy it here and I paste it here. Okay. And then I say at the end, so I say, after you've created the two tables, you will fill them in with test data. You'll fill them in with 20 tables and 10 reservations respectively. Use English sounding names. Okay. And now the AI agent of Airtable will start to create these tables here. So you see it's thinking, so it's very similar to ChatGPT, and it is a super useful tool. It's super useful because it saves me from typing in all of these things. So it's telling me, okay, the tables have been created and now it has filled them in with the data, which is very nice because we can see here the tables, all the tables, the capacity, everything neatly created with the zones, if it's active or not. So you see Airtable is also good or better because I can open, the way I can interact with the data is more similar to a CRM system than Google Sheets that allows just for simple spreadsheets. Okay, now the data model is all set. Let's continue with building the actual chatbot inside Voiceflow. So what is Voiceflow? Voiceflow is a system that allows you to write conversational flows. It's similar to what I did here in Miro with writing these state transitions here, but each of these transitions will be what Voiceflow calls a separate AI agent that has access to these tools, okay? Let's see how we create them. This is the dashboard of Voiceflow. We will come here and create this agent by hand. So we create on project, new project, and we will call this like this, and we will say, describe what this AI agent is going to do. Here I can prompt it, but we don't want this. We saw it's too bloated and we click start from scratch. So now I have this interface here. And what we are going to do now is we will recreate all of these steps here, greeting, information gathering, and so on, right? So the first one is greeting, customer support. Okay, let's say greeting, the first state called greeting. Okay, and then we will have another state. We click on agent here. Now, what are these building blocks? In the past, Voiceflow used to be a very rigid conversational builder. So we would have messages that we were pre-written. We would have, for example, images and so on, like you would know from these classical WhatsApp bots. We would have logic and so on, dev tools and so on. But with the new introduction of the AI agents here, you can create bots that are very free-flowing in the sense that they understand what you want and they're not so rigid. So this is why we will focus only on this agent building block, okay? So the second one is called information gathering. You will split the system prompt. You'll split the system prompt onto these sub-agents and give me appropriate prompts for each of them that I can readily pass into Voiceflow and hit the ground running. Okay, what we do now is we go step by step and we generate the small steps. So now it created the prompts for each of these steps. And at the end, it asks me, would you like me to also write the exact Voiceflow block sequences, including when each Airtable calls to be called? That's a good idea. Go ahead. And now it also told me which tools to use. So for example, block 3 availability check, use get tables, you get reservations and so on. So what I'm going to do now is I will just copy this into each of the steps. So for example, here I click copy and then I go here to this guy, customer support specialist. I will just replace everything that's in here with this prompt. Then I will go to the next step and do the same. I can also choose the model, which we will go with GPT-4.1 mini which has turned out to be very useful so far. We set the temperature to 0.1, so it's not too creative, but this also helps that it doesn't hallucinate too much. So we'll do this for every model now. Then I will copy each of the prompts from here. I will continue. So the information gathering agent, I will give them a title. Info gathering agent, pick the model again, GPT-4.1 mini. All right, this is done. So I just copied all the prompts from our ChatGPT session into each one of these AI agents. And I also set the model for each one of them. So we will use GPT-4.1 mini, and here is basically the instruction that it will work with. And now each one gets an exit condition. So this is when it will go to the next step. So this condition is customer wants to book a table. And the LLM for this is transition. So basically we have this here. If the user says yes, transition to the information gathering step. So we can copy this here and say, if the user wants to book a table, smoothly transition to the information gathering step. And then we will connect this part with this part. So it means if this happens, it will transition to the next step. And we will do this for every step. So for the information gathering step, we will have the transition as being collecting all the information, all the necessary steps. So all the information collected, transition to the next step. If you have all of party size, date, and a time range. Again, we connect this to the next. So I just connected all of the steps with each other. So for the first one, it's customer wants to book a table. Then it continues to the information gathering. Once all the information is collected, it will check for the availability. And then once the availability was found, it will go to gather remaining information. And then once the information was gathered, it will create the actual booking. And once that's done, it will say goodbye and end the chat. For this last step, we have to say that once nothing else has been said, it will transition to end. So the condition would be end the conversation when the guest has nothing else to add and wants to say goodbye. And for this, we pull a state which is called end. So we put it here, and then we put a new connection here, and we name this end the chat. So this is how it looks like. Now, the last thing we have to do is we have to connect the relevant steps with the tools. So we can have a look at our chat with ChatGPT because it suggested where to use each tool. So they will be in the availability check. So it does a call to get tables and to get reservations. So this is what we will do now. We will go to the availability check block and we will add a tool over here, right? So we have various options here that are pre-configured, including Airtable, but it's not so reliable, especially when you use various tables within the same base. So for this, we will click plus and we will choose add an API call, create API tool, and we can reuse this throughout the whole flow. So we will use a GET request, and this will be the URL of the Airtable table. And we get this if we click in our Airtable on help API documentation. This will generate the documentation for us right away. And we go to the tables table. And here we have all the information we need in order to connect this. And we have here various operations we can perform. List records is what we want. And what we are interested in is this string here. So this is basically the connection. It's airtable.com/vo, and then is the base ID and then the table. So we will copy this just before the question mark. Everything after that is a query parameter. And we will get to this in a second because this is important when we check for availability. So we get this over here, we paste this here, and then we have to add our headers. So the header will be authorization, it's auto-completion, and then we will add our own API key. So how do you get the API key in Airtable? You go to settings, to your profile, and then you go to account. Then you will see this notice here. So you go to Developer Hub. We create token. And if we don't have an API key yet, we click on create token. And here we set the name, the scope. The scopes will be basically records read and write. And this looks good for the moment. And then we will click create. But for this demo, I've already created a token and I will use this in my Airtable integration. So I have this saved already. Okay. And then parameters, we don't have any for this one. And we call this API get tables. We can test it by clicking run, and we can see it was successful. So it got these records from the tables table, right? So we have a table named T18 with 6 seats in zone C. Let's check if that's correct. Tables, table 18, 6 seats, zone C looks good. So this connection worked. So we close this, and now we see that it appears up here. Get tables. There's a little warning, missing LLM description. Okay, so here I have to explain to the LLM when it should use it. And I will say, use this tool. I said, use this tool when you need information about all tables that are available in the restaurant, such as name, size, location, and so on. So it's all good. We can close this and go back. Now we need another tool, get reservations. And here we have to do this trick with finding only the reservations that basically collide with our time slot so that we remove them from there. So for this, we will have 2 tools. One tool will make sure to get all the reservations, and the other tool will make sure to get only those reservations that conflict with the current desired time slot. So we will go add a new API call, and we've drafted one just now, and we will call this get conflicting reservations. And we can set this via the filter. We can see this here. We set this via the filter by formula query parameter. We will just copy the reservations list records endpoint and add list records at the end, and then use it as an post request. So we use post, we use this string, and then at the end we add list records. Okay, now the headers are the same, the authorization and our token, and then the body will be a raw JSON file. And here we will specify the filters. So it's filter by formula, and then the formula. And now we put the entire formula into one line. So for this, we're going to add some variables. One is called reservation date. And this is the date the guest wants to reserve the table. The other one will be start time, or to put it completely, start date and time, and the date time. And then we will include them here. So the date is the reservation date. And then here we have the start time and the end date and time, okay? And we will have to do one thing. We have to escape these quote marks, because otherwise it will think that the string will end here. But if we escape them, so we put them into backtick, then it knows that it should take them as string characters and not as end of string signals in this sense. And the fields we want is table and reservation number. So basically, these are the fields that it will return from the reservations table. So let's see if it works. There is one error though. Active doesn't exist on the reservations table. Okay, it is something that was taken from the tables table. So what we will do is now we will link this. Because the tables here are linked, we will add a lookup. So lookup means it's very similar to VLOOKUP in Google Sheets if you're familiar with that. So we will activate the active field, and then we will rename it to be called active. And then when we look into the formula, it says, okay, and it is active. Okay, active question mark means if it's available, but now we know it's available. So if active equals 1, which it does because it's a Boolean value. So basically it's a checkbox if we look in the tables table, which is fine. So we can use this here. And if the reservation date and then the formula, start date and time, and then this one, end date time. So we call it end date end time. So this information here, these input variables, they will be collected by the LLM from the conversation that it had so far with the guest. Now let's have a look at a reservation that we want to make. And let's say we want to start today at, let's say 7:15 p.m. And I want to see all those tables that conflict with that. So now let's run this again, and we see that it fetched the record successfully. So now it shows me all the records that conflict with this time range. It pulls the correct records, which we see is 5, 1, 3, 4. So 1, 3, 4, 5, which conflict, because it's between 7:30 and 8:15. So these conflict, which is correct. So now we continue to the next step. We first need to add the LLM description here, which we take from our description here. So it gets all reservations that conflict with the currently desired time frame. And I have to specify this here so that it knows about it. And we will do this here. and we will say, you will get all tables from the get tables tool. So we specify that you will get all tables from the get tables tool, and then you will get all conflicting tables, which you will then subtract from the list of all tables. That's how you know which tables are available. Okay, now let's go to the next tool that we will need. So we need a create booking step, which is here, and we will add a tool now. We'll have to change the prompt here slightly. Instead of finalizing creating the reservation, we are saying create a reservation record by using the create reservation tool, which we will create now, and we will call it here create reservations, or create one, just create reservation. Its description is create a reservation with all the details provided. And the input variables will be everything that we will need for a reservation that has been collected so far. And we will first look at the reservations table API, create records. And from there, we will start filling in all the fields that we see here. We will choose the post field, which is here. We will add the headers, which is the authorization and the bearer. Again, we choose a raw body for the JSON format. And now we will copy the data that will be sent, which is in this form. And then we will fill in the fields. So here we will have just one record. The other one we can delete. This is because Airtable supports creating multiple. Now that the JSON body here is specified and all the data is being sent properly, we can test this. So we click on run, and here we enter the details of this request. So all the variables. So here we need the table ID. So for this, we go to the tables table, and up here we can copy. So we first click on one table, and then up here we can copy this last part of the URL, which is basically the table ID. Party size 3, start and end date, let's say it's tomorrow at 19:15. We fill in here the rest of the details, and then we click run. And then we see that it has actually made an API request, and it pulls basically the response from this, which means it has created a record with all of these details. Now, if we go back and have a look at the reservations table, we can see down here that the reservation was actually made, and it's confirmed, and then all the details here as well, and also the notes like high chair for the baby, please. So all good. Now we can continue. Once this is all set, we have the entire pipeline here. So now we can test it. How do we do this? We click here on start. There is a little play button. So we click it here, and a new view appears. So this view shows us here on the left side. This is like the flow of operations that happen. Up here we see the state we're in. It's with a slight blue border. And then up on this side, we have the chat where we can actually start talking to it. So we can say, hey, it says, well, do you want to make a reservation? I say, yes, I'd like to book a table, right? And now it's computing, and we can see that here on this side, it has proceeded to the next step, okay? And it says, okay, to start, could you please tell me the number of guests, okay? And I say 3. And we can see that here on the left side, it's processing. So I can see all the steps that it does, including the tool calls, right? So, okay, party of 3, what date would you like to go? I'd say, let's go with tomorrow, August 27th, and let's see what it says. Just to confirm, 3 guests, or would you like to prefer flexible time range? I say, let's go with 19:15. Now we see that it has proceeded to the next step, check availability for booking. We have availability for 3 people. Would you like me to hold this table for you? And I'd say, what kind of tables do you have? So I want to know a bit more about it, okay? And now it pulled the data from the database that we can see here. And this is the data that's actually here in the tables table in Airtable, right? So here we can see basically the different table types and some notes and everything. So it is informed and it knows what to answer for to me, right? And then I would say, okay, do you like preferences? Yes. I say I'd like a family table with a high chair for the baby. And then it says, okay, we have a 4-person table. Do you want me to book this, to hold it? And I say, yes, go ahead. Okay, and now we can see here on the left side that it basically makes a call in a second. It first asks me for my reservation, And name, so I see name is Robert Hangu. Of course, it didn't ask me these details in the beginning because it would have been weird. And now we can see that here it makes a reservation, and then we can see that it's again asking for my confirmation to say yes because it repeats it to me. And then we can see it here that it's calling the tools. So what it said was basically the call to create reservation succeeded, right? So we can see that it worked. And now if we look into the table, into the reservations, we can see that it was actually successful, okay? And then it also specified here in the notes that I want a family table with a chair for the baby. The source was Chatbot, and all good. Now let's have a look at the inbox. We can actually see that we have a couple of messages from Airtable actually with a confirmation, and it says, okay, your booking was confirmed, and this is the reservation number. And then it also says, okay, you want a family table with a high chair. How did it do this? Now, this is something that I haven't showed you yet, but Airtable has this functionality up here called automations. So it can do certain things upon certain events. So in this case, the trigger is when a record is created. So in this case, when it's created in the table reservations, what it does is it will send an email, okay? And the email will go to the email address of the person, and it will go to with this subject. So it will have the reservation number in it as well as we saw here. And then the body of this will look like the following, containing the guest name. We confirm your reservation at the start date that we see here at the start date, and that you have also mentioned this, the notes. So it can choose different fields, okay, from the table, and that's basically the email. Of course, we can include anything into it, also a summary of the conversation and so on, but this is not configured through the AI agent. And now the chat has ended, everything was good. Now, how do we import this into our website? We first have to publish this. So we go to interfaces, and here we have this code snippet that we copy, and we copy it at the bottom of the website. So my website is in Framer. I will show you how this works, but it's similar in most of the website editors and creators. Once you have your page here, there's usually a button called settings, and at the bottom there's this costume code field here, and this one goes at the end of the body tag. So this is where you paste it. I've already pasted here, and you just click publish and you're ready to go. Now let's have a look at this website. And we can see that a button appeared here, right? So there's two buttons because one is from my main website. Please ignore that. And we will start a new chat. And this is basically how it works. And this is the exact same experience that you saw earlier when we were testing it. Now here's a quick summary of what we've seen so far. We start very high level with specifying the steps of the AI agent in Miro, which is just a simple drawing tool, right? Where we specify these steps, and it's very nice for ideation. Then we went over to ChatGPT and ideated further to test our assumptions and to see if we have any holes in our thinking. And it also gave us a very nice Airtable schema. It told us how to query for the conflicting tables. And then it also gave us some very detailed code that we didn't end up using. But if you will use a proper integration in a production system, you will make use of it. And then we built the whole pipeline inside of Voiceflow, which is a conversational design tool where you specify these transitions that look very similar to the ones we had in Miro. Okay. Now, after that, we tested our agent inside the Voiceflow interface, and then we copied the code inside of our website so it appears on the front page via a click. I will share all the details with you, all the links to all these resources in the links in the description below, where I also put a copy of this complete AI agent that you come and readily import into your Voiceflow. You do this by coming here to your projects, you go back to dashboard, and then you click on projects, and then up here there's a button called import. So you click on that button, and then this nice form appears where you just upload the .vf file into your Voiceflow dashboard. So you have this complete agent up and running in no time, and it includes all the prompts that we have discussed today. It will include all the tools that we have connected with, and you only need to come here and change basically these details, the endpoints to your Airtable and the authentication details. And finally, all this data resides into Airtable, which is a system very similar to Google Sheets, but a bit more automated in the sense that you have the use of automations up here, and you can also view data in a nicer way. You can expand it, and it has more like a CRM feel to it. Now, if you like this video, I'm doing a challenge, 30 AI agents in 30 days. Click the subscribe button to not miss out on any of these AI agents, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.